The day I found out I was pregnant, I thought my life was finally perfect. The day I found out he was cheating on me, everything shattered. That's the sentence that plays on repeat in my head even now. Two lines, two truths, two realities that could not exist together. And yet, somehow, they did. Back then, I was 27, working long shifts at a local design studio, and coming home every night to a man I thought was the love of my life, Ethan. We had been together for 4 years, living in a small townhouse with peeling paint on the shutters and a squeaky old staircase that drove us both crazy. But it was ours. It was home. And for me, home always meant him. When the test turned positive, I sat in the bathroom with my hands shaking so badly that I nearly dropped the stick into the sink. Two pink lines. I stared at them as though they were foreign symbols, something I couldn't quite decipher, even though I knew exactly what they meant. I laughed first, soft, disbelieving laughter that bubbled out of me before I could stop it. Then I cried. Then I pressed the test against my chest and whispered, "We did it." Ethan wasn't home yet, so I rehearsed how I'd tell him. I imagined the look on his face, his eyes widening, his grin splitting across his face, the way he'd scoop me up and spin me around in our tiny kitchen. I wanted the moment to be perfect. When he walked through the door that evening, tired from another day at the office, I was waiting with a little gift bag. Inside, I'd placed the test wrapped in tissue paper and a onesie I had impulsively bought earlier that day, pale yellow with tiny stars scattered across it. "Open it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He frowned, confused, then reached inside. For a heartbeat, I held my breath. And then, he smiled. Not the full ecstatic grin I had imagined, but enough. "Daisy," he whispered, looking from the test to me. "Are you—" I nodded, tears burning behind my eyes. "We're going to be parents." He hugged me, tight, and for a few moments I believed everything I had ever wanted was right there in his arms. That night, I lay awake beside him, my hand resting on my stomach, already speaking silently to the tiny life growing inside me. But if life had taught me anything, it was that moments of pure happiness are often the most fragile. They shatter easily, and mine would, sooner than I could ever imagine. Over the next few weeks, I lived in a dream. I started sketching out nursery ideas. Soft pastels, a rocking chair in the corner, little watercolor animals on the walls. Ethan seemed supportive, though distracted. I chalked it up to work stress. He often came home late, sometimes too tired to even eat dinner. "Are you okay?" I'd ask, brushing his sleeve as he scrolled on his phone, his jaw tight. "Yeah, just deadlines," he'd say, kissing the top of my head. I wanted to believe him. And I did, because trust was the foundation of everything we had built. Because betrayal was not something I thought he was capable of. One evening, when I was about 9 weeks along, I sat curled up on the couch with my laptop, researching baby names. Ethan had gone out for drinks with a coworker. I smiled at the thought. He was finally loosening up, maybe bonding with his team. I texted him a silly suggestion. "What about Oliver if it's a boy?" No reply. Hours passed. Midnight came, then 1. By the time he stumbled in at nearly 2, smelling of perfume that wasn't mine, the first crack in my perfect world had already formed. I didn't say anything that night. I just watched him kick off his shoes, mumble something about the guys, and collapse onto the bed. But something inside me shifted, a quiet voice whispering, "Pay attention." And from that moment forward, I began to notice the details I had ignored. The way he angled his phone away from me when texts came in, the sudden new cologne he never wore before, the business trips that seemed to multiply. The day I saw her name flash across his screen while he was in the shower, I knew. My hands trembled as I read the messages. Sweet words, plans to meet, a confession of love, and all I could think was, I'm carrying his child, and he's giving himself to someone else. That night, as he kissed me goodnight, I lay in silence, staring at the ceiling. I didn't scream, I didn't leave, I began to plan. People think betrayal happens in a single moment, but the truth is, it's built piece by piece, lie by lie, until one day you wake up and realize the person next to you is a stranger. That realization hit me slowly, like water dripping on stone. After the first night I smelled that perfume, I started seeing Ethan in fragments, pieces that no longer fit together. He was restless, always on edge, always reaching for his phone as though it were a lifeline. He'd step outside to take calls, his voice hushed, his laugh too soft, too intimate. When I asked, he shrugged it off. Work stuff, Daisy. You know how it is. But I knew better. Work didn't make a man smile like that. Work didn't make him buy a new shirt I had never seen before and spray on cologne he used only when he wasn't with me. At first I told myself it was pregnancy hormones, that I was paranoid, that I was reading too much into things. But then the messages started. One afternoon, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed. Normally I would never snoop, but this time my hands moved before my conscience could stop them. A single preview lit up the screen. Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. I froze. My breath caught in my throat, my heart pounding against my ribs so hard I thought it might break free. My hands trembled as I unlocked his phone and scrolled. Dozens of messages, weeks of conversations, promises, laughter, and her name, Maya. He told her he missed her. He told her she was beautiful. He told her he wanted to see her again, soon. And all I could think was, I am carrying his child, and he is carrying on with her. For a moment, I wanted to scream, to throw the phone at him, to confront him right there in the bathroom, dripping wet and exposed. But instead, I put the phone back exactly where I had found it. I pulled the covers over me and lay still. My chest ached, but my mind was sharp, awake in a way it had never been before. That night, while he slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and made a choice. I wouldn't confront him. Not yet. Screaming would only give him power. Walking away would leave him unscathed. No. If he thought he was clever enough to betray me while I was carrying his child, then he would learn just how clever I could be. So I started collecting every lie, every message, every phone call, screenshots, emails forwarded quietly to my private account, bank statements I requested under the guise of organizing our finances. I became invisible in my own home, silent but watchful, letting him believe I was still the same Daisy, still soft, still blind. And the more evidence I gathered, the more I saw the shape of his double life. Dinners he claimed were late nights at the office. Weekends he said he was catching up on projects, but spent in hotel rooms with her. Gifts bought with our joint credit card, jewelry that never made it to me. All the while, I grew. My belly swelled, my back ached, and inside me, our child kicked, alive and innocent. I spoke to my baby in whispers when Ethan wasn't around, promising a safer world, a stronger mother. Sometimes I wondered if I was cruel, staying in this house, pretending, smiling, when inside I was unraveling. But then I'd remember his smile when he kissed her name across a glowing screen, and the anger hardened into resolve. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about my child. And if Ethan thought he could live two lives, if he thought he could betray us without consequence, he was wrong. The plan began as fragments, fleeting ideas, half-formed fantasies of justice. But over time, they grew sharper, more precise. I didn't just want him to feel guilt. I wanted him to lose everything he had built on lies, his reputation, his career, his friendships, his carefully crafted image of being the perfect guy. Late one night, while he snored beside me, I whispered to myself, patience is power. And in that moment, I became something new. Not just Daisy, the woman who was betrayed. Daisy, the woman who would destroy him. Revenge doesn't begin with fire. It begins with silence, with watching, with waiting. And I was very, very patient. From the outside, nothing had changed. To the world, I was Daisy, pregnant, glowing, devoted. I smiled at baby showers, let friends touch my growing belly, posted carefully filtered pictures of nursery paint samples. When Ethan's parents called, I told them he was working hard, that he'd be a wonderful father. I laughed when my sister teased me about cravings and swollen feet. No one knew. And that was the point. Because behind the smiles, I was cataloging everything. Every late meeting that was really a dinner with Maya. Every hotel receipt he left in his jacket pocket. Every unexplained charge on our joint card. I had become a ghost in my own home, slipping in and out of rooms, watching, memorizing. He thought I was blind. He thought pregnancy had softened me, made me too tired, too distracted to notice. But in truth, motherhood had sharpened me. I wasn't just carrying a child, I was carrying a purpose. Each night after he fell asleep, I opened my laptop and uploaded everything to a folder hidden deep in a cloud drive he would never find. Screenshots of texts, copies of emails, bank records, photos of receipts. It grew and grew until it felt like I was tending a garden, one that would bloom not with flowers, but with ruin. Sometimes I would read their messages, and my stomach would twist with rage. Can't wait to see you again. Wish you were here instead of her. You make me feel alive. Her name, Maya, appeared like a stain across every page of my life. I could have hated her, but strangely, I didn't. Not really. My fury wasn't for her. It was for him. For the man who had stood in our kitchen holding a yellow baby onesie, swearing he was ready to be a father while his heart belonged elsewhere. There were moments I almost broke. Times when he came home with flowers, when he kissed my forehead and whispered, "We're going to be such a great family." My throat burned with the urge to scream, to shove the evidence in his face. But I didn't. Because I had learned something. Confrontation gives the other person a chance to explain, to twist, to manipulate. But silence? Silence is undeniable. Silence is terrifying. So I played my part. I packed his lunches. I rubbed his shoulders when he complained about deadlines. I let him believe we were still us, that I was still his Daisy, that the nursery I was painting was for the family we would share. And in that silence, I studied him. His tells, the way his eyes darted when I asked a question I already knew the answer to, the way his story shifted depending on the day. He was unraveling, and he didn't even know it. At my doctor's appointments, he was sometimes absent, too busy at work. Nurses would smile sympathetically, assuming he was one of those fathers who just didn't understand. I smiled back, never letting them see the storm that raged beneath my calm. One afternoon, while sorting through laundry, I found a small box tucked in his drawer. Jewelry, a necklace with a delicate silver chain. Not for me. He hadn't given me a gift in months. My fingers traced the box, and for a moment I imagined walking into their dinner, dropping it on the table, watching their faces collapse. But no, that was too easy. Instead, I photographed it, added it to my growing archive, and placed it back exactly where I had found it. By the time I entered my third trimester, my body was heavier, my steps slower, but my mind sharper than ever. I had enough evidence to bury him, enough to ruin him with his job, his family, his friends, and he had no idea. At night, when he touched me, when he whispered that he loved me, I would smile softly, even kiss him back. But inside, I was somewhere else. I was already imagining the day the folder would no longer be hidden, the day his carefully built world would collapse under the weight of his own choices. I wasn't just Daisy the betrayed anymore. I was Daisy the collector, and soon I would become Daisy the destroyer. Revenge isn't loud. It's not screaming in someone's face. True revenge is quiet, calculated, and delivered when they least expect it. By the time I entered my 8th month of pregnancy, I had collected enough evidence to bury Ethan 6 feet under metaphorically, and I was ready to start digging. The first strike was subtle, an anonymous envelope to his company's HR department. Inside, neatly printed receipts of business dinners that were, in reality, dates with Maya, expense reports cross-referenced with credit card charges, a detailed timeline of business trips that aligned perfectly with hotel bookings for 2. I didn't sign it. I didn't have to. I knew HR would follow the trail like bloodhounds. At home, I kept my silence. Ethan didn't notice the way his phone calls grew shorter, the way his smiles faded when his colleagues stopped laughing at his jokes. He didn't notice the whispers in the hallway. Or maybe he did and was too proud to admit it. The second strike was social. I carefully packaged screenshots of his messages, cropped just enough to remove any hint of me, and sent them from a burner account to his closest friends. "You deserve to know who he really is." That was all the note said. It didn't take long before invitations dried up. His phone buzzed less. The nights he used to spend with the guys vanished. He didn't complain, not yet. But I saw the confusion on his face when he scrolled through his contacts, and no one replied. The third strike was Maya herself. I never blamed her fully, but she was part of the story, and she needed to see it too. So I sent her the photos, the ones of Ethan and me smiling in our half-painted nursery, the ultrasound printout with his hand resting proudly on my belly. A short, simple note. "He didn't tell you about us, did he?" For 2 days, Ethan was restless, pacing, checking his phone like an addict. Then one night, he came home late, his shirt untucked, his face pale. He didn't eat, he didn't speak, he just collapsed into bed, staring at the ceiling like the world had tilted beneath him. I lay beside him, silent, feeling my child kick inside me. I whispered to the baby, "Almost there, almost safe." The final strike came weeks later. A second envelope, this time to his parents. They adored him, always bragged about how successful and reliable he was. I made sure they saw the truth, the messages, the lies, the betrayal. The fallout was swift. Phone calls turned into shouting matches. His father's disappointment cut him deeper than any blade I could have wielded. His mother cried on the phone, asking how he could do this while I was carrying his child. And still, through all of it, I played the role of the loving partner. I comforted him when he said the world was against him. I rubbed his back when he muttered that someone was sabotaging him. I whispered, "It'll be okay," while inside I was smiling at how thoroughly he was unraveling. Because this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice, about making sure he understood the weight of every lie, every betrayal. By the time our due date drew closer, Ethan was a shell of the man he had once been. His job was under review. His friends had turned their backs. Maya was gone. His parents barely spoke to him. One night, he broke down in the kitchen, head in his hands. "I don't know what's happening, Daisy. It's like everything is falling apart." I stood there, one hand on my belly, the other gripping the counter to steady myself. I looked at him, really looked, and realized he was finally seeing the cracks he had created. I wanted to tell him then, to say, "This was me. Every piece of this collapse was mine." But I didn't, because silence was sweeter, and revenge tastes best when it's mistaken for fate. Revenge isn't about rage. It's about balance. And when the scales finally tipped, I didn't need to say a word. By the time I went into labor, Ethan's life was already in ruins. His job had put him on temporary leave while they investigated his expense reports. His friends no longer returned his calls. Maya had blocked him on every platform. Even his parents had grown cold, their disappointment carved into every clipped conversation. And still, he clung to me, to the illusion that I was his anchor in a storm he didn't understand. The night I gave birth, he held my hand in the hospital room. He whispered, "We'll get through this, Daisy. We'll be a family. I'll fix everything." His voice trembled, and for a moment I almost pitied him. Almost. When our daughter's cries filled the room, I felt something shift inside me. Not just love, fierce and overwhelming, but clarity. This child was my future, my strength, and nothing, not Ethan, not his lies, not his ruin, could touch that. For the first weeks after, I let him play the role of father. He changed diapers, rocked her to sleep, whispered promises of being better. But the truth was, the walls had already closed in on him. The HR investigation became public. He was quietly let go, escorted out of the building without fanfare. Word spread fast. His reputation was stained, not just as an unfaithful partner, but as a dishonest employee. No company wanted him. His parents stopped calling entirely. His mother sent me a message, though. "You don't deserve this, Daisy. Stay strong for your baby." There was no mention of him. At home, the silence grew heavier. He sat for hours on the couch, staring at nothing, his phone buzzing less and less. Bills piled up. Debt grew. He started snapping over small things, the mail, the dishes, the babies crying. And through it all, I stayed calm, because I knew the truth. He wasn't being punished by me. He was being punished by himself. Every step I had taken had only revealed what was already there. His weakness, his betrayal, his lies. One night, when the baby was finally asleep, he looked at me across the table, his face hollow, his voice a whisper. "Why does it feel like the universe is against me? Like everything is falling apart no matter what I do?" I set down my glass of water and held his gaze. My heart was steady, my voice even. "Maybe it's not the universe. Maybe it's just the consequences catching up to you." His eyes widened, searching my face for something. Denial, comfort, forgiveness. I gave him none. Only silence. He didn't press further. He just looked away, his shoulders slumping under the weight of a truth he couldn't escape. The next morning, I packed a bag. Diapers, bottles, clothes for the baby, clothes for me. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't scream. I didn't even leave a note. Because I didn't owe him words. I walked out into the crisp morning air, my daughter bundled against my chest, and felt lighter than I had in months. The world was wide open, waiting for me to step into it. Behind me, Ethan sat in the ruins of the life he had built on lies, alone, jobless, friendless, untrusted. He would never know the full extent of what I had done, or how carefully I had orchestrated it. He would never be able to prove it. And that was the beauty of it, because my silence was never forgiveness. It was his punishment.